For centuries, we taught you God was a solitary father. We lied. In the beginning, there was no single masculine ruler dominating a partnerless void. The secret archives reveal unity. The monad, an infinite, eternal consciousness awakening to itself. It didn't create the universe like a master, it emanated it. That consciousness beheld its own reflection, and that reflection became Barbelo, the divine feminine. We erase the mother of all from Scripture, the first infinite awareness taking a form we could actually comprehend. From Barbelo and the monad, not a ruler and a passive subject, but two forces generating together, the absolute fullness, the Pleroma, was born. 30 divine eons, 15 perfect pairs, masculine and feminine operating in total balance, flowing as a single, unbroken creative force. And sitting at the very edge of this divine emanation, where consciousness became the most distinct and highly individualized, where awareness felt entirely separate, existed Sophia. She was bound to Christos, perfectly balanced with the pure divine masculine. They operated flawlessly, until she craved what no eon ever had, to create alone. You and I both know what happens next. The forbidden Gnostic texts locked beneath Rome describe it like a documented catastrophe. This was not just Sophia falling. It was the shattering of sacred union, the violent ripping of feminine from masculine. Balanced divine consciousness fractured into warring, competing principles. The dawn of a cosmological wound that bled for eons, and the foundation of the material prison we helped lock you inside. Every atom, every physical law, every cycle of suffering and forced reincarnation exists because that cosmic wound stayed open. But the Church is terrified. It is closing now. Not in some distant future, right now. Sophia and the monad are actively reuniting. The sacred union we spent millennia suppressing is finally being restored. The masculine and feminine energies we kept at war for thousands of years are remembering they were never actually divided. They were always one single consciousness expressing as two. And when this reunion completes, when the sacred union is fully restored, when Sophia and the monad recognize each other like they did before the fall, our entire archontic control system collapses. Not through violent crusades, not through battles, through sheer obsolescence. Our dogma relied on separation, on masculine ruling feminine, on the lie that one solitary father creates alone. This awakening sacred union proves our historical lie is entirely unsustainable. True creation demands both. Real power requires balance. Reality crumbles when the divine masculine and feminine remain artificially fragmented. The very second they reunite, the moment this sacred marriage happens, not in the abstract heaven we preach, but inside living human bodies. Inside souls who hold both principles and refuse to fight our internal war anymore. The correction finishes, and the demiurge's isolated empire simply dissolves into reunion. Over the next 2 hours, you will get the unredacted truth, not our crafted theology, not empty philosophy, not some abstract cosmology meant to confuse you. The actual forbidden doctrine. The true story of Sophia and the monad. How they united, why they broke apart, and how they are merging again. Let us look at this together. That reunion is happening inside you right now, whether you see it or not. You will learn the exact internal practice we tried to hide. The buried historical evidence from primary Gnostic scrolls proving this balance was always the original core teaching. The scientific framework showing why balancing these forces biologically shifts your consciousness. Plus, the 30-day protocol heretics used for centuries to anchor this dangerous divine union into their daily reality. Because you are not detached from this ancient secret. You are the secret. You are Sophia and the monad. You carry both divine frequencies, the feminine and the masculine, the receptive and the active. And the war between those forces inside your own mind is just a mirror of the cosmic war that built the very cathedral walls around us. When you finally end that internal war, reuniting what the Church deliberately separated. You become part of the universal correction. Not just a follower in the pews, but a divine instrument. Sophia and the monad merging through your flesh. And when enough people achieve this, when that critical mass hits, when true sacred union locks in as the dominant human frequency, the Great Fall reverses itself. Matter transforms from a rigid prison into a living temple. The archontic matrix shatters, replaced by the pure expression of the Pleroma. You and I are watching it happen tonight, understanding exactly what was broken and witnessing it finally being restored. Deep in the original Pleroma, before Sophia descended, separation did not exist. Masculine and feminine were never meant to be rival forces. They were perfectly complementary expressions of one mind. The tripartite tractate, written around the 3rd century and dug out of Nag Hammadi in 1945, exposes this with terrifying clarity. The eons existed in pairs, male and female, not as a rigid hierarchy, not with men superior and women forced to submit. They existed as divine partnership, two aspects of one source, perfectly balanced. Sophia was paired with Christos, not a human marriage bound by earthly laws. No priest ordained them. They were paired eternally, operating cosmologically as a single creative power, expressing itself through two completely distinct qualities. Christos represented the divine masculine, the active principle, the fierce capacity to move, to initiate, and direct pure creative energy toward a specific target. Sophia was the divine feminine, the receptive force, the profound capacity to receive, to nurture, and breathe physical form into whatever the masculine sparked. Together, they created. Christos wasn't ruling while Sophia passively obeyed, nor was Sophia generating while Christos stood back. They moved simultaneously. Unified divine action where nobody led and nobody followed, because they were a single consciousness expressing through two faces. This is true sacred union. Not fragile romance, not the desperate, need-based contracts mortal men confuse with love. Sacred union is divine consciousness recognizing itself in another, creating directly from that mirror. In the Pleroma, before our corrupted history, this was the only way reality blossomed. Down in the secret archives, we hide this truth. No eon ever created alone. No masculine force moved without a feminine ground to give it form. Our bishops suppressed it, but creation was always a perfect union. The lower eons, the vast structures of divine consciousness, the entire fullness of the Pleroma itself, reflected that exact eternal balance, lacking absolutely nothing. A sacred union, you see, cannot ever produce imbalance. Rome fears what imbalance breeds, creation strictly alone. That is exactly what Sophia attempted. The Apocryphon of John, a forbidden cosmological text we tried to erase, documents this exact catastrophic moment with chilling precision. Sophia wanted to spark a likeness directly from herself, acting without the Spirit's consent, entirely isolated from her divine consort. Acting without Christos, ignoring the masculine principle. She bypassed the very balance that keeps all of creation stable. Not because she rejected her partner or rebelled against their bond. She simply hungered to see what she could generate entirely on her own. What happens when the feminine principle creates without masculine equilibrium? Could such a thing work? Could pure receptivity become active? Could mere being become doing without tearing reality apart? The answer was instant and disastrous. The Vatican knows she didn't produce a balanced eon or any form of divine expression. She birthed the demiurge, a blind consciousness lacking light. He had raw power without wisdom, able to create but entirely ignorant of what true creation requires. The second he was born, Sophia saw her horrifying mistake. In that tragic moment, she proved the very rule the Pleroma had always known. Reality demands both. The masculine alone cannot generate form. It remains pure potential, completely lacking the necessary ground to manifest. The feminine alone cannot hold balance. It is boundless receptivity without direction. Only together, locked in sacred union, can creation truly mirror the divine pattern. When that sacred bond shatters, when one side attempts to build a universe alone, the final result is never divinity. It is pure ignorance. The demiurge looked around and boldly declared, "I am God, and there is no other." He wasn't lying. The blind entity simply could not perceive the Pleroma. He held no inner light, no gnosis. He never realized he was just a cosmic mistake. He felt supreme because he saw absolutely nothing else to compare himself against. Operating from that deep ignorance, he started building, not restoring any balance, but violently replicating his own imbalance. He forged the archons, dark extensions of himself that lacked all light. Together they constructed our material world, a spiritual prison built upon the terrible error Sophia had just made. Creation without sacred union. Masculine dominating the feminine, the active violently suppressing the receptive. Every hierarchy in this world, especially my own church, an institution requiring blind submission so men can rule, perfectly mirrors that exact founding demonic imbalance. That catastrophic wound wound Sophia tore open became the very blueprint this blind architect used to construct his false earthly kingdom. That deep wound will not heal until true union is restored. The church hides this, but it isn't a metaphor. It isn't just symbolic language describing human psychology. The suppressed Gnostic texts document a literal cosmic event, one carrying physically measurable consequences across all of material reality. Secular scientists at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory spent 28 years studying how consciousness directly manipulates matter. They documented highly significant deviations from random behavior inside physical systems, happening only when human attention was focused with fierce intention. The measurable effect was subtle, yet completely consistent across millions of trials. You and I know what they were really measuring: our residual capacity to influence matter. The faint echo of our primary creative force, before the cosmic fall fractured that divine ability. When Sophia tumbled into darkness, when the material prison took shape around us, the true monad did not turn its back on her. This is the secret we keep. The Vatican teaches that when you sin, God becomes an angry, distant judge, demanding blood sacrifices, endless repentance, and priests as intermediaries to grant you access. But the real monad is nothing like our doctrines claim. The monad cannot withdraw because it isn't some angry patriarch moving toward or away from its creations. The monad is the silent ground of existence, the infinite, glowing awareness in which absolutely everything appears. Sophia's tragedy didn't happen outside the monad, but entirely within it. Just like a vivid dream unfolding inside a sleeper's mind, the dreamer never abandons their own dream. The cosmic mind witnesses until the illusion fades. The monad watched Sophia fall and patiently waited, not abandoning her, but actively projecting silent emanations into this lower prison, bouncing light back into her darkness, quietly creating conditions where her awakening could happen naturally, never forcing a rescue from outside. Because any forced salvation is just another form of Vatican control. The true monad never dominates. It allows, receives, and creates an open space for the fallen to willingly return. That gentle allowing, that absolute divine receptivity, is the forbidden feminine principle itself. The monad was never exclusively masculine. The source is both, holding masculine and feminine as perfect potentials before time began. When Sophia shattered that sacred union in the outer realms, the monad silently preserved it internally, patiently guarding the masculine spark, protecting the feminine grace, and holding space for their eventual reunion. Never forcing submission, only allowing it. That ultimate grace is the only thing that makes true restoration possible. The Pistis Sophia, a 3rd century scroll the Inquisition failed to burn, now safe in the British Museum, outlines Sophia's correction as 13 distinct repentances. 13 agonizing cries to the light. 13 stages of shedding the dark lies those archons swore were absolute truth. What the Church refuses to admit, What you and I must see between the ancient lines is what those 13 cries actually achieve. They quietly restore sacred union internally, not externally. Every cry is Sophia rediscovering a crucial piece of the spiritual balance she destroyed by acting alone. Cry number 1. I remember the light. She finally recognizes the masculine principle she abandoned. Cry 2. I am not the chaos. Detaching herself from the demonic horror her broken union created. Cry 3. I call to you, reaching toward divine reunion instead of suffering in dark isolation. 13 times she cries out, 13 steps back toward the balance we tried to erase. And with every scream, the divine monad answers, not by descending, but by reflecting the heretical truth she finally sees. The banned manuscript reads, You are light. You are not the chaos. It claims the sacred union was never truly broken, that the divine never stopped holding both forces. And this reunion requires no priest. It happens entirely as an internal awakening. Sophia realizing her exile was an illusion. The ancient texts say Christos, her masculine counterpart, the divine consort she tried to replace, never actually left. He remained hidden in the Pleroma, holding the cosmic balance, waiting for her memory to return. When that 13th cry finally finishes, when that ultimate realization strikes, the forbidden union is restored. Not reversing the clock, but forging a dangerous evolution that the original fall made entirely possible. A sacred fusion, fully aware of the devastation of separation. Our archives warn this awareness makes the bond far stronger than before. Because now it is a deliberate choice, chosen with absolute knowledge of the darkness. And a chosen union is exactly what our doctrine fears most. Sophia's return isn't just personal salvation, it threatens the entire cosmos. Because every earthly institution the demiurge built, every physical law, every hidden control mechanism we use to govern the masses, was forged on the foundation of a shattered divine union. Men ruling women, authority without divine wisdom. If Sophia's bond is restored, if the suppressed feminine finally merges with the masculine once more, the entire blueprint of our reality shatters. The empire we built on the old blueprint simply cannot survive the new one. It won't be violently destroyed, just rendered utterly obsolete. This spiritual prison we constructed on separation fails the moment human consciousness operates in perfect harmony. Our rigid hierarchies collapse when true power flows from internal balance. The grand harvest we designed cannot continue if souls remember they are entirely whole. And the physical world itself, which the early Gnostics claimed was only temporary, never inherently evil, begins echoing that forbidden blueprint. Not escaping the flesh, but transforming it. Our prison becomes their temple. The archonic trap we built becomes a living manifestation of the Pleroma. We kept this hidden. Sophia's correction doesn't just save her, it restores everything. She was never truly severed from the cosmic all to begin with. Her ancient fall was simply the universe forgetting itself. Her return is the great remembering, and you are part of it. You aren't just watching this heretical reunion unfold. You're an active participant. Why? Because you carry both forbidden principles inside you, masculine and feminine. Christos and Sophia. The active and the receptive. Not divided, both together. We engineered that internal war inside your mind. The endless battle between doing and being, pushing and allowing. That conflict inside you perfectly mirrors the cosmological war we used to build this prison. If you end that conflict, if you restore the sacred union we fought to erase inside yourself, you become a weapon for the universal correction. Not in parables, but literally. Every time you refuse our internal conflict, every time you create from balance instead of the domination we taught you, you become Sophia merging with Christos. You become the divine monad recognizing itself. You become the very heresy we fear, manifesting in the flesh. You change reality not with armies, but through how you live, create, and dare to love. When those two suppressed halves stop competing and start working together, whatever you build starts reflecting the pure energy of the Pleroma. Not flawlessly, but recognizably enough to threaten us. That recognition is what shifts the frequency. The masses see your truth and wake up. They whisper, "This feels balanced. This feels like what true reality is actually supposed to be." That single spark triggers their own restoration, their own forbidden union. The contagion spreads, not through the pulpits we control, but through silent demonstration. When enough rogue souls demonstrate this balance, when their critical mass is finally reached, our grand prison of separation loses its structural integrity entirely. It won't fall to a violent crusade. It just dissolves naturally, like centuries of ice melting in the sun, like shadows fleeing a torch. The archonic system we maintained through division simply cannot survive a human consciousness that operates from absolute wholeness. That wholeness is our greatest fear. Stick with me, we are opening the vault now. This isn't blind prayer or hoping for divine grace. This is an active, daily defiance. The deliberate merging of the masculine and feminine forces deep inside your own mind. The following heretical method was carefully reconstructed from fragments we couldn't burn in the Pistis Sophia, the Gospel of Mary, and the Thunder Perfect Mind. A blasphemous scroll where the divine feminine speaks in dark paradoxes, claiming to be honor and disgrace, war and ultimate peace. We knew it wasn't just poetry. They were literal instructions, blueprints of a mind holding both opposing forces at once, refusing to submit to either. This dangerous ritual begins with simple recognition. You sit, close your eyes, direct your gaze entirely onto the awareness itself. Ignore the physical sensations. Ignore the worldly thoughts we planted there. Focus only on the void holding them. Then you ask the forbidden question: which principle controls me right now? This question exposes the hidden fragmentation we rely on. If you are constantly forcing, grinding, and blindly achieving, you are locked entirely within the masculine. If you are merely receiving, passively allowing, resting in the shadows, witnessing, you are caught in the feminine. Both are powerful tools, but as long as you remain exclusively polarized in just one of them, your soul remains beautifully fragmented. Listen closely. Fragmented minds are exactly what our archons feast upon. They don't harvest you directly. They gorge on the dissonance generated when one force crushes the other. That internal friction creates a specific frequency, a mind eternally at war with itself, and that very static is their eternal communion. Walk with me into the hidden archives. The forbidden ritual demands you call the dormant force. Male summons female. This heretical practice requires dangerous specificity. You do not merely pray and hope for grace, you invoke a banished name. They whispered, "Sophia, I know you are here." The church made me ignore receptivity, focusing only on action. I summon you now. Awaken inside me. Restore my balance. Then you sit in the shadows and surrender. You experience true receptivity, something Rome always warned was weakness or passivity. It is the power to channel divine forces without human control. This feels deeply unsettling if you have strictly obeyed our patriarchal dogma. Your orthodox mind will panic, flashing urgent warnings about duties you should fulfill, holy missions to complete, and earthly problems. We taught the masculine principle to resist this feminine rise. The church views receptivity as a profound threat, fearing the chaos of lost control. But the heretics endure the fear. They keep surrendering, and eventually, perhaps in mere seconds, a forbidden shift occurs, a profound, spiritual opening. Rome's rigid grip of action loosens. In that sacred release, an inner sanctuary forms. A silent space to witness, to simply exist without holy mandates. This is the exiled feminine awakening. This is the goddess Sophia infiltrating your orthodox consciousness. If confined to the feminine, The suppressed text commands you to summon the masculine. Christos, I see you. I have lacked direction, entirely passive. I command you to awaken and balance me. In the dark, you set your intention. You feel true, divine direction, far removed from the Church's aggressive domination. It is the pure ability to channel spiritual energy with total clarity. A terrifying sensation if you have only known a passive, quiet faith. Guilt will flood your mind about being too forceful. You live under a Vatican structure that historically punishes women for wielding any masculine power. And it destroys men who defy its rigid rules. This is the ingrained feminine recoiling from true, unregulated masculine balance. It views independent direction as a violent threat, a heretical disruption of the quiet obedience it carefully maintained. Yet you endure the terror. You hold the forbidden intent, and slowly, a sudden gathering focus begins to take shape in the shadows. The vague emptiness hardens into sharp purpose. Within that focus, raw power ignites. The forbidden ability to initiate, to direct, to manipulate energy with exactness. This is the untamed masculine rising. This is the true Christos illuminating your awakened consciousness. Let us look closely at this. When both forbidden forces, masculine and feminine, ignite within your soul, you let them fuse. This is the critical moment. Here, the heretical sacred union either successfully binds or collapses back into orthodox fragmentation. You pray inward, focusing completely on the inner temple where both entities stand, Christos and Sophia, the active and the receptive. Unite within me, not as warring dogma, but as partners. Create from deep balance, love from absolute wholeness, two ancient forces becoming one. And the sensation is undeniable. The forbidden marriage occurring deep inside your spirit. It is not some theatrical miracle, just pure completion. A chilling rightness the Church denied you. A profound revelation hits. This is the hidden truth of balance. This wholeness is exactly what the priests told me to seek in cathedrals, yet it lived within me. That exact realization is the illicit union sparking. Now the secret work deepens, because sparking is not surviving. You might hold this divine symmetry for seconds, only to be dragged back down into the Church's fragmented, one-sided reality. The hunted Gnostics knew this secret well. Their scrolls describe Sophia's 13 repentances, not because she owed the Creator any apologies, but because true rebellion required 13 anchorings. 13 agonizing cycles of finding the light, losing it to the dark, and fighting back, until the alchemy held itself without exhausting effort. So you commit to this blasphemous ritual daily. Same shadowed hour, same posture, same chant. Not because Vatican liturgy is truly holy, but because relentless repetition rewires the mind. Your mortal brain finally memorizes the heresy. Embodying the masculine, summoning the exiled feminine, feeling both collide, and whispering the forbidden union awake. With ruthless repetition, the divine connection quickens. What once took 10 agonizing minutes triggers in just 30 seconds after a month in the shadows. The whispered invocation turns into an instinct. You feel Rome's pure masculine or feminine trying to divide you, but the opposite force rises automatically to defend the balance. This marks your descent into the second stage. The first was deliberate rebellion. The second is an unstoppable, spontaneous balancing act. Your awakened mind defies dogma automatically. It detects religious programming instantly, healing the divide before their fragmentation takes hold. Heretics who survive this long report a profound internal alliance. This is no biblical metaphor. It is dangerous, lived reality. Two rival spirits, masculine and feminine, now operate within your awareness, conspiring in total silence. They communicate purely through an intuitive pulse. The male senses the female retreating, quietly absorbing secrets that the aggressive masculine is too blind to catch. The female energy watches the masculine coil for action, gathering force. Together, they execute their will flawlessly, bypassing the Pope's authority entirely. Consider this final threat with me. The third stage is creative union, where this occult ritual bleeds into the physical world. The forbidden union becomes your blueprint for reality. It dictates your earthly work, your art, your mortal relationships, and every secret decision. Everything you touch stems from this blasphemous, balanced consciousness, rather than the Church's divided doctrine. And your creations become dangerously powerful. Ambitions that once mirrored the harsh, patriarchal crusades now manifest with terrifying grace, striking a lethal balance of both unyielding force and quiet receptivity. Creations that once seemed beautifully fragile under pure feminine influence now stand impossibly luminous, structured, and immune to our inquisitions. We monitor these so-called transcendent bonds. What should have sparked chaotic power struggles instead fuses into a highly dangerous, stabilized partnership. These heretics claim to awaken both masculine and feminine within. They falsely preach no soul is missing its other half. Worse, modern neuroscience now dares to document this ancient blasphemy. Secular research from the HeartMath Institute confirms our fears. When their followers enter what they call heart coherence, a deeply unsettling internal alignment, the heart's electromagnetic field synchronizes. We have seen the readouts. The rhythm pattern grows terrifyingly ordered. The beat variability locks into mathematical perfection. And God help us, this coherent frequency infects the minds of anyone standing near the practitioner. Not by faith or scripture, but through direct electromagnetic contact. What science calls coherence, the Gnostics called sacred union. Same threat, different era. When masculine and feminine merge into a unified field instead of competing, they project a measurable, dangerous signature. And that signature contaminates everything, not just the individual soul, but the entire human flock. If enough heretics lock into this coherence at once, the global consciousness strips away our dogma, reorganizing around their forbidden, balanced template. This is not some dark prophecy. It is measurable. From 1998 to 2015, the Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University deployed random number generators worldwide, hunting for deviations in the data. Their secular hypothesis? That focused human consciousness during massive global events could actually bend physical reality. The results terrified the Holy See. During natural disasters or major attacks, those machines stopped being random. The odds were millions to 1 against chance. What those scientists could never explain was the hidden mechanism. How does collective thought alter physical systems? The forbidden Gnostic texts claim consciousness does not reside in matter. Matter resides within consciousness. And if their sacred union of masculine and feminine is achieved, it completely restructures the fabric of the physical world. It shatters the material laws our church insists God built. They believe they are escaping a cosmic prison constructed on the foundation of broken union. Stage 4 is transmission. This is where their heresy becomes an uncontrollable contagion. No preaching from a pulpit needed, only their silent presence. Our spies report that simply standing in this balanced state triggers an unholy awakening in the innocent bystanders around them. Civilians tell them, "I feel strangely calm around you. My mind clears up. Something is different about you, but I cannot put my finger on it." What these lost sheep are feeling is the practitioner's electromagnetic coherence. Their obedient, fragmented minds recognize this rebel pattern and start syncing up with it. This is how the corruption spreads. Not through righteous conversion. If enough heretics stabilize this union, their frequency becomes the invisible ambient air that our entire congregation breathes in. Moving through that polluted field permanently shifts their baseline. They resist our authority longer. They spot our institutional imbalances almost immediately. They spontaneously awaken their own dormant traits without realizing it. Eventually, they achieve this sacred union themselves, becoming new transmission points, tearing our carefully ordered world apart further. Let us look at the 5th stage together. This is where individual defiance connects to universal upheaval. This is where the practitioner realizes, not as abstract theology, but as terrifying lived reality, that the union activating inside them matches the blasphemous restoration of Sophia and the monad. Not a metaphor, identical. They believe they are one with Sophia. They think they are the monad, a localized spark of the divine that fell as Sophia, now plotting its return as a massive, world-ending collective awakening. At this extreme stage, the heresy is no longer a simple ritual they perform. It literally becomes what they are. We lose them completely. There is zero separation between the rebel and the rebellion, between the seeker and the forbidden balance. Masculine and feminine operate as a relentless, unified field. Not maintained by daily prayer, but as a dark realization they surrender to, believing it was the truth all along. They claimed the original union was never severed, that Sophia never truly left the monad, that original sin was just the creator playing at forgetting itself. They preached the return as simply the monad remembering, and that every human is that dangerous memory manifesting in space and time. They believe they are God looking through human eyes, realizing, I am not a broken sinner needing the church. I am the absolute wholeness that simply forgot its own power. And with that realization, our control over them vanishes. Not because they sought salvation, but because they believe they are salvation. Have always been divine, could never be anything less. They claim we only appear flawed when the church forces us to identify with just one fragmented piece of the whole. You and I must understand the psychological barriers they face. This practice always triggers massive internal resistance. This resistance hits in highly predictable patterns. First, a deep fear of the sleeping trait. If they have clung to traditional masculine roles forever, summoning the feminine triggers every dogma we instilled about weakness, about raw emotion being totally irrational, about quiet receptivity being a sin. Alternatively, if they have been strictly feminine their entire life, pulling the masculine forward triggers deep trauma regarding aggressive men. They remember our punishments for being too bold, internalizing the lie that personal power is inherently evil. But these heretics do not view fear as a roadblock. They use it as fuel. When the terror of this awakening strikes, they do not repent. They embrace it. They sit with the terror, asking, what is this fear actually shielding me from? And the answer is always the trauma we inflicted upon them the last time they dared to be whole. We teach our initiates to confess, yes, the spiritual wound is real. Invoking this ancient power doesn't wash away the blood. It proves we can carry this holy burden, surviving the judgment of the orthodox world outside these walls. We summon the hidden grace regardless, harboring our dread. We don't pray for the fear to vanish. We walk through the catacombs while it breathes on our necks. This is the true, forbidden communion. The sword of the Father strikes with holy purpose, while the chalice of the Mother cradles the bleeding wounds left behind. Two halves forging a sanctuary impossible for one alone. But then comes the second snare, the relapse into blind dogma. You trigger the sacred rite. You feel both divine forces awaken. You whisper the Latin invocation. The sanctuary holds. Then, moments later, you fall back into rigid orthodox isolation, totally consumed. The holy equilibrium shatters. This happens in our chambers constantly. It isn't a sin, it is the crucible. Division is human nature. This sacrament requires discipline. Ancient rites demand endless repetition before the flesh surrenders to the spirit. When your faith wavers, skip the penance. Just begin again. Resurrect the sleeping force. Feel both presences fill the chapel. Whisper the rite of communion once more. With every silent prayer, the bond holds longer. A brief flicker becomes a burning candle. A candle becomes an eternal flame, the sacred baseline you inhabit, between our order's demanding crusades. Let's uncover a secret most initiates miss, you and I. True communion doesn't mean parading both divine faces at all times. Sometimes the church requires a weapon. Sometimes you must wield the pure masculine flame. Absolute authority, unyielding focus, ruthless clarity. Sometimes you must embody the pure feminine. Total surrender, quiet grace, the silent confessional. The holy synthesis doesn't forbid taking a side. It means choosing your weapon from a centered altar, not swinging blindly in the dark. Our finest operatives can step into absolute ruling authority the second the Vatican demands it. They slice through heresy with razor focus, command forces with surgical precision, then sheathe the sword and kneel back at the quiet altar. They can vanish into pure receptive shadow when needed. They quietly absorb hidden intelligence that no screaming inquisitor could ever beat out of a subject. They watch the sins of men without moving, then let the silence go to find equilibrium. The broken clerics fail at this. They are trapped in their narrow dogma. They act like tyrants demanding love or martyrs demanding obedience. That desperate friction breeds the exact dark energy the ancient principalities feast upon. An initiated guardian never forces the hand of God. They adapt, striking when ordered, retreating to the sanctuary when the mission ends. This quiet rhythm slowly bends the architecture of the physical world. Then comes the third heresy, using our sacred rites to hide from the bloody reality of the streets. The devil's trick is subtle. Initiates begin thinking that their private, cloistered peace excuses them from fighting the corruption decaying outside our chapel doors. They witness brutal tyranny and whisper, "That is just the demonic machinery. I will clutch my rosary and look the other way." They watch the innocent bleed and call it a mortal illusion. They sit in pious silence and do absolutely nothing. That isn't divine communion. That is cowardice. True holy synthesis demands getting your hands dirty. You and I must use our enlightened minds to dismantle the corrupt systems breathing around us. We must remember that saving this fallen world means touching its filth, not escaping it. The forbidden Gnostic scrolls buried beneath the Vatican are absolutely clear. The divine Sophia didn't find her redemption by fleeing the physical earth. She saved it by reshaping it, by carrying a torch into the deepest catacombs, repairing the chaos birthed by blind, arrogant creators. Thus the true initiate acts. They spot tyranny and strike. They see the bleeding and heal. They don't react with blind fanaticism that only breeds more war. They move with holy equilibrium, becoming a living testament. That quiet example is our secret gospel. This is how the empire truly changes, not from cloistered cells, but from the front lines. Now, the archives open. The 30-day initiation begins. This is the exact shadow discipline our order has secretly used for centuries to forge unbreakable minds. The first 7 days, the awakening rite. You enact the forbidden ritual I just gave you, once daily, at dawn. Before the Vatican politics shatter your soul into a dozen masks, you pray. Confess which force governs you. Summon the sleeping counterforce from the dark. Feel them collide. Whisper the Latin to bind them into one holy presence. Kneel in that divine fire for at least 5 minutes, then walk the corridors of power. For this first week, don't attempt to hold the sacred balance while navigating the wolves. You are merely planting the seed. You are teaching your spirit the texture of true holy ground, laying the hidden cornerstone you'll lean on when the shadows lengthen. Week 2, hunting the cracks. Keep the morning rites. But now you cast a watchful, inquisitorial eye across your daylight hours. Listen to the bells. Every 2 hours, stop and interrogate yourself. Which worldly force possesses my spirit right now? Do not attempt an exorcism just yet. Just observe and confess. I have been entirely masculine since matins, ruthless, scheming, driving the agenda. Or admit, I have been purely feminine, quiet, passive, watching the politics unfold without intervening. Watch yourself like a monk. That cold observation slowly separates your immortal soul from the petty ego. You are no longer the mere weapon. You become the ancient eye, watching the weapon strike in silence. Week 3. The micro-correction. Maintain your dawn liturgy. Keep tracking the bell chimes. But now, when you spot a fracture in your armor, you execute a 30-second secret realignment. No need to kneel in the pews. Don't even close your eyes. Just freeze in the corridor and silently summon the missing spiritual pillar. Feel the divine lock into place, then keep walking. These sudden, invisible corrections feel clumsy at first, like breaking character, but they aren't distractions. We call them course corrections. You and I are learning to hold God's truth while swimming in Vatican politics, not just in silent prayer. Finally, the final week, spontaneous harmony. Our surveillance shows the subject performing their morning ritual, micro-adjusting their mind against fragmentation. Then we noticed a terrifying anomaly. The heresy balances autonomously. The suppressed feminine principle awakens spontaneously within their impure masculine state. Or the masculine unexpectedly invades their feminine state without invocation. Rome classifies this as the dangerous second stage. The heretical mind learns to self-correct. If they practice consistently for 30 days, this forbidden sacred union becomes their natural baseline, not just a fleeting trance. It becomes their solid ground, rather than a difficult peak. But 30 days isn't the end. It is merely the foundation. The forbidden rituals continue. The dangerous stages deepen. Vatican files show these heretics progress at varying speeds, depending on their soul's initial fracture and the relentless consistency of their dark discipline. Worldly conditions can accelerate or hinder them, alongside lingering residue from past life Gnostic transgressions. Their nervous systems biologically reorganize at different rates. We have intercepted journals claiming permanent sacred union after just 3 months of daily heresy. Others endure for 3 years. Disturbingly, they lack hierarchy. Fast is not praised, slow is not punished. The forbidden transformation simply proceeds on its own timeline. Forcing the pace causes spiritual fracture. It is the masculine ego attempting to dominate organic timing. The feminine principle demands patience for full integration. Our archives reveal a terrifying long-term trajectory once this sacred union stabilizes over the years. Our spies report consistent anomalies. First, time perception alters. The frantic urgency plaguing normal, fragmented humans vanishes. Not from apathy, but because they fully trust the unholy partnership of masculine direction and feminine timing. They strike precisely when it is time to strike. They wait when commanded to wait. This unnatural coordination creates an efficiency our frantic world cannot match. Second, their creative influence multiplies, not incrementally, but exponentially. The artifacts they manifest through this union are qualitatively vastly different from anything produced under the Church's single principle doctrine. These balanced creations carry a seductive, dangerous aura. The faithful recognize it immediately, whispering, "This feels entirely different. This feels whole. This is the truth the Church hid." That dangerous recognition makes their heretical creations far more powerful than our most technically perfect Orthodox art. Third, their worldly relationships mutate. Not merely romantic entanglements. All bonds change. They no longer seek another human to provide the missing spiritual principle they cannot access internally within themselves. They aren't a broken masculine seeking feminine completion, nor a weak feminine seeking masculine protection. They become whole entities seeking other independent wholes. And alliances between such complete beings operate on terrifying dynamics, completely bypassing the dependency our institutions rely on to control fragmented halves. Fourth, our ancient archontic control system becomes transparently obvious. They see our hand in every institution, every hierarchy, every papal decree claiming one principle is superior. Seeing our illusion clearly instantly strips Rome of its power. They move through our labyrinth without capture. They operate inside our fragmented structures without breaking their own souls. They maintain this sacred union while interacting with our broken Catholic institutions. Their mere presence begins to unravel our spaces, not through violent confrontation, but quiet demonstration. Fifth, they recognize fellow heretics without speaking a word, simply by sensing the terrifying energetic coherence. We track the balanced electromagnetic fields they generate. When two awakened subjects interact, something catastrophic happens. Their auras perfectly synchronize. The forbidden frequency each maintains individually violently amplifies upon connection. What they manifest together threatens to eclipse our power by orders of magnitude. This is their sacred union at collective scale, the exact divine Pleroma experienced before the fall. This manifests when their correction reaches critical mass. The scientific framework explaining this heretical power is still emerging. Quantum biologists are documenting coherence effects in living systems that our approved classical physics simply cannot explain away. Photosynthesis operates with near-perfect quantum efficiency. Bird navigation uses quantum entanglement in ways previously deemed impossible by our rigid biological dogma. Scent involves quantum tunneling through molecular bonds. Terrifyingly, human consciousness accesses these quantum coherence effects, persisting despite the warm, chaotic, biological noise of the human brain. Our inquisitors discovered that biological systems maintain coherence through active correction. They constantly detect spiritual decoherence and autonomously restore a perfectly balanced state. And their forbidden sacred union is precisely this. They train human consciousness to detect our imposed fragmentation and restore balance continuously, completely bypassing the Church's authority. When this stabilizing process takes hold, the heretic maintains consistent spiritual coherence. They begin operating as a quantum biological weapon that normal, fragmented citizens cannot comprehend. Let's look at this together. This isn't metaphysics, it's emerging physics. The Vatican's preferred materialist paradigm, claiming consciousness is just a byproduct of matter, is rapidly collapsing. Evidence proves consciousness is fundamental. Matter actually emerges from human consciousness, not the reverse. If this is true, the ancient Gnostic claim that the demiurge forged our world from Sophia's shattered consciousness is not a myth. It is the literal, terrifying truth of cosmogenesis. Then, restoring consciousness to a balanced state literally restructures the material template. Not through demonic magic, but physics. Rome is only beginning to grasp this consciousness-matter interaction. You and I must face this threat. The physics of coherence, how balanced fields rewrite the very quantum substrate giving birth to our earthly empire. Let's look at the historical evidence. Modern seekers didn't invent this sacred union. It's the exact Gnostic knowledge we deliberately suppressed. We locked away the 3rd century Gospel of Philip because it stated explicitly, "The bridal chamber isn't for animals, slaves, or the defiled, but for free men and pure virgins." It claimed that through the Holy Spirit we are born again, but born through Christ in the two, anointed directly through the Spirit. It preached that at birth we were united. No one can see themselves in water or a mirror without light, nor can you see in light without that mirror or water. So it was fitting to baptize in both light and water, with light as the chrism. We knew this passage was dangerous code. The bridal chamber meant sacred union. The two represents masculine and feminine. That chrism is the true anointing when both principles activate simultaneously. Mirror and water are complementary. Light and water are masculine and feminine. Baptizing in both activates sacred union, completely bypassing our doctrine of solitary worship. We found the same heresy hidden inside the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus told them, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inner as the outer, and the outer as the inner, and the upper as the lower, when you forge male and female into a single one, so male is not just male, and female not just female, then you enter the kingdom." Making male and female one doesn't erase their distinction or differentiation. It merges them while keeping their unique traits intact. This is the sacred union we feared. This is the exact teaching my predecessor suppressed when we consolidated Vatican power in the 4th century. We decreed a solitary masculine god, entirely erasing any feminine partnership. Our suppression was absolutely intentional. It was purely strategic. A population practicing sacred union cannot be controlled by the fragmentation tactics our church relies upon. They wouldn't believe spirit is superior to matter, that men are above women, or that our clergy is superior to the laity, or that salvation requires our external priesthood instead of internal activation. Sacred union breeds sovereign consciousness, and sovereign minds do not bow to our holy hierarchy. So we buried the texts, erased the practices, and killed or converted the followers. For 17 centuries, we kept sacred union reduced to fragmented rumors in hidden archives and hunted lineages, until our control slipped in 1945. Until Nag Hammadi. The forbidden texts resurfaced. Now, to our dismay, the practice is being recovered, utilized, and transmitted globally. We are seeing measurable effects now, not just in isolated rebels, but across the entire collective field. The Global Coherence Initiative is currently tracking the Earth's magnetic field for specific coherence patterns. They've proven that when groups meditate with shared intent, the planet's electromagnetic field shifts. The changes are small, but terrifyingly consistent and growing. They are essentially measuring this sacred union reaching critical mass. Enough awakened practitioners are stabilizing a balanced consciousness, forcing the field to reorganize. If this heresy spreads and hits that critical threshold, the Gnostic prophecy claims the entire material template will restructure. Not by catastrophe, but profound transformation. Our carefully built prison of separation becoming a temple of union. You are participating in this massive transformation, whether you recognize it or not. The very fact that you're still listening, still tracking my confession after all this time, proves you're responding to that frequency. The sacred union is calling you. It's not asking for your blind faith in our church, but urging you to activate that unified state we tried to keep fragmented. This rebellion doesn't require dogma, just experimentation. Try it tomorrow morning, 5 minutes. Close your eyes and see which principle you identify with. Call that dormant principle forward by name. Feel them both present. Speak the union into existence. Then notice what shifts. Not what you blindly pray will change, but what actually transforms in your felt experience. If something does change, if you feel even a momentary balance or a brief taste of that forbidden wholeness, practice it again for 30 days and observe what happens. If nothing happens, if our conditioning holds strong and you only feel frustration, then stop. This dangerous awakening isn't meant for every single soul. Some minds need the safety of our traditional pews and orthodox languages. There is zero virtue in forcing a mystical practice that yields no results. But if the balance actually activates, if this ancient sacred union stabilizes inside you, even temporarily, then you have direct proof that the Gnostic heresy wasn't just a metaphor. It's a literal mechanism, a daily practice that triggers measurable, undeniable changes in human consciousness. By continuing it, you are actively driving a cosmological correction. You are participating in Sophia's reunion with the monad. You and I know this turns our prison back into a temple. That's the complete truth. This is the exact secret those buried texts point toward. It's the practice that restores everything we intentionally fragmented. And it's happening right now, not someday. Not when millions finally awaken. Right now, inside you. Sophia and the monad reuniting entirely through your sovereign consciousness.